Coach, when you look at what Justin has achieved in this league so far, he's been very, I mean, he's been great. Is it an unfair burden on a young quarterback like Justin to expect 300-400 yards every game?
I don't think it's an unfair burden because he's capable of it. I think, that's where I stand with it, is that, he's set a remarkable standard because he's accomplished a lot and he's capable of a lot. And I think that when you see something like that in sports or any other profession like it, you kind of come to expect it once you've seen it, not just once, but over and over and over. He hasn't just done it a couple times. He's done it a bunch so far in his young career. So I think that he's certainly set a high standard for himself. And I think that with that standard comes, the question of consistency and performance, and I think that what he's proven is that he is a consistent performer. And I think that that's what's so remarkable about his start to his career, is that he's proven that he's a consistently, top tier player in this league. And but at the same time, with those expectations also comes the reality of being brand new to the league. And so you have that super standard of performance, but you also have to understand that there's also a journey that you're going on. And I think that that's where the competitor in you has to take each game as a big time learning experience, whether it goes the way you want or not. And I think that, after the last two games we've had, I think that Justin's learned a lot, and what he goes back out there and does is what he always does, whether it was a 400-yard performance or a tough performance, is he goes out there and he grows from it and he learns from it, and that's what you want. And I think the thing about him and other players like him is you got to take ownership for your game, and that's what he does such a good job of, and I think that that's where he's at so far in his career.
Down a couple corners for this game, and
yeah.
Michael, just how do you anticipate that affecting things? And TC and Ryan Smith were out there on the outside in the last game. Chris obviously played some in their last game as well and can do that. Just how do you see it sort of playing out?
Yeah, Daniel, it's such an important point in ball is when you go down a couple guys, how you respond. And I think that, Derek Ansley, Tommy Donatel, Ronaldo, that whole group of guys does such a good job of cross-training these guys. These guys have game action. They've been in the fire, whether it's preseason or during this season. I mean, Keemon is out there in the Kansas City game, playing for us when Chris was down. TC, playing most of that game, starting at star, and he's also played outside for us. So I think all those guys have had meaningful experience, and Ryan's played in this league too, and I think that experience helps. So it's going to be all hands on deck on Sunday, and I like the way we've practiced so far this week with that group, and I'm really confident in those guys as competitors, and we're going to have to do a good job playing and coaching around them, but those guys are going to be up for the challenge.
With Chris Harris, is the plan to keep him on the inside or outside, a little bit of both with all the adjustments?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think in 5 DB groupings, you can expect him inside, and then in 4 DB groupings, he'll definitely be a factor for us outside at corner. And it's such a luxury to have guys like Chris and Derwin that can provide you even more depth. And I think that that's something that we really value in the secondary, and that's why we value it, because you're going to have games where you do get banged up, and you got to be able to withstand it. So I'm excited to see that group compete together. They've practiced well.
Is there any concern about some of that shuffling could impact your special teams?
Yeah, Jeff, it's such an important point. And we're going to have some activations, tomorrow that are reflective of that issue that you're talking about. And it's great opportunities for other players to compete and show what they can do. And I think that's why on special teams you also have to have a system that's flexible, because you're going to endure, games like this one where guys have to move around, and guys that were probably primary special teams players have to have primary roles on defense, which affects their job on special teams. So we're going to have that same cross-training action tomorrow on special teams, and we're going to get to see where we're at, for sure. So I'm excited to see that, though, because that's what the NFL is about, and that's the type of team that we need to be.
With Alohi, was it something that popped up sort of after the game? Because it seemed like he was playing pretty late into that game, or was it something that happened?
Yeah, it happened in the game, and it's one of those things that the game adrenaline, you're able to get through it, but after the game you're feeling much different than you did when it was live. So we just want to be smart with him. He's competed hard this week, rehabbed hard, but we just want to make sure we're smart with him, so he'll be more of a game time decision for tomorrow.
And then
or first Sunday.
Yeah, where's Kenneth at? Obviously practice this week, or are you sort of?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about where K9's at. He's practiced well, but again, one of those things we're going to try and take advantage of that window and make sure that when he comes back that he's ready, much like Ryan Smith, just making sure like, hey, this guy's ready to go. It's one thing to be maybe physically clear to go, but hey, have you practiced enough? Are you in the game plan and stuff like that? But he's trending really positive, and I'm excited. We're excited to get him back.
What's your immediate impression of Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts is a winner, and Jalen Hurts is a competitor. He's a playmaker at the quarterback position. He makes plays. He makes first downs. He's a guy, my high school coach, Bob Ridley, he said, your number one job, Brandon, is to move the chains. He said, that's your number one job, is to move the chains and protect the football. And I think that he does both of those things. And he can bring his team back. I think the Tampa Bay game is a good example of it. Carolina is a good example of it. He's always been able to do that wherever he's been, whether that was in high school, in Texas, coach's son, great player, going to Alabama, going to Oklahoma. He did the same thing wherever he's been. He makes plays. He can bring you back. He's a guy that has a lot of confidence in his ability, and you can see that team starting to find out how to use him best. And I've got a lot of respect for him as a competitor for sure.
Brandon, with the number 2 running back role, what have you seen out there, Roundtree and Joshua Kelly, these past couple of weeks? Has one of them kind of emerged and take those snaps away from Jackson getting out this week?
I think both of them are going to be in the game plan. I think that both of them have strengths, and I think Larry's contributions on special teams is important for us. He's a guy that has carved out a nice role for himself. And then in terms of just running the ball, so much of it is the type of runs that we're using, and also pass protection within the game plan. Who do we trust to protect the passer? And so I think those guys are competing nicely, and we're just going to see where it goes. I felt like JJ really emerged last week as a guy in practice and in the ball game that we really felt confident in that number 2 role. But then, with the setback, we're just going to keep, that competition open.
Just looking at your rookie class, obviously Rashawn and Asante were thrown in the fire, but you've sort of taken your time phasing the other picks into the game, whether it's Josh Palmer, Trey McKitty, Brendan Hymus. Is that a case-by-case thing with each individual player, or is that more of like a philosophical thing of like making sure that each guy is prepared before they're getting into a ball game, just whether it's confidence or making sure that they get off to a good start, that sort of thing?
Dan, I think excellent points. We feel really we're excited about this rookie class. Chris Rumpf has been a major factor for us this year on special teams, and he's been in the rotation. Nick Neiman, same way. Special teams has played linebacker in some games, and those guys have been out there. They've kind of been out there in the fire. Josh has been out there. His role, I think, is still evolving and it's still growing, but I think he's proven that he can make NFL plays out there, which we're excited about in that number 3 receiver role. I think with Trey McKitty, his is an example of making sure he was ready to play, more physically than mentally. And then physically now he's shown that he's ready to play, and mentally he's ready to play. And that's why I kind of talk about every timeline's different for a young player. And I think Trey had a nice first game last week, and we're excited to see how he plays this week. And I think the same thing for Mark Webb. Mark Webb has been in there for us, and he's been doing a really good job. And I think that his role is going to continue to evolve because he looks like a pro secondary player and a guy that should be a big factor on special teams. And I think that was a really good pick for us. I'm excited to keep coaching him. Larry has had a role every game. And so I think what I'm excited about is we're getting contributions from everybody, and then Brendan, as a rookie offensive lineman, that role, hey, it was a big step for him last week, being active in the game and being ready for the game. And I think that growth and development, Frank Smith, Sean doing such a good job with those guys, Kevin Koger with Trey McKitty, I feel like that's such a big part of the NFL is developing. But the best way to develop is to get out there. And what we want to make sure is we get them out there when they're ready. And then when we put them out there, we're going to be ready for them to make some mistakes because that's just part of being a young player. But I believe in getting them out there. And that's what you're seeing is phasing these guys in the right time and then getting them out there so that they can really grow. And I'm proud of these guys. These guys have all done well. And don't leave off Amon, as an undrafted guy who's gone out there and played exceptionally well for us. We've had some undrafted guys done really well for us too. So we're proud of that class, and they're going to continue to grow for us.
Brandon, with the punt coverage, I know it's kind of a rocky game with the Patriots game and facing Gunner, but that kind of been an issue the whole year, or was it kind of a one bad game kind of thing?
Against Duvernay, Duvernay had a good game against us as well. And I think, again, as much as the coverage, we got to talk about punt location is part of it. And it's not just a gunner issue or a interior core issue, it's a team issue. And I think that both of those games, from Baltimore's plan of attack versus New England, they were different game plans. But I think what expressed itself is that our entire coverage team has got to be more connected in terms of how teams are playing us. And then, hey, this is who needs to win if they match us up like this. And this is where the ball needs to go if they're matching us up like this. And so everybody tied in together. And I think, punt is a defensive play after the ball's turned over, and it's those 11 guys playing team defense together. And I think it's just us being connected. And I know Darius and May are working hard with that group. There's a lot of young guys on that group who are going to learn a lot. And both of those special teams units, when I talk about the truth and stuff like that, I think both of those teams told the truth about where we need to go as a punt unit.
Growing pains with that unit specifically sort of expected, though? I mean, one half of the entire punt protection is all rookies between Chris and Nick and Eamon over there on the left side. So expect some growing pains with that?
I think we have high expectations. If they go out there as punt starters, I mean, they're starters in the NFL just like everybody else, so we're going to hold them to that high standard. But I think there's also the realistic expectations that, hey, you're going to have some tough moments. What we've got to do is minimize them and being able to, really learn quickly. You got to learn quickly on the job, and I don't think it's a talent issue at all, which is exciting. It'd be one problem if we didn't feel like we had good enough players out there, but we know we have good enough players, and what we need to do is continue to accelerate that growth through practice, post-practice, pre-practice, and just keep that positive trend in terms of the preparation, and then I know good results will happen.